All right, welcome everybody. In this video, I want to talk about how we could create side-by-side box plots using ggplot2 in R. So in the previous video, we created a single box plot to display the bill length for the penguins in the Palmer Penguins data frame. We also have looked at histograms to display the Palmer Penguins data frame. And what we kind of noticed was there's like three subpopulations in this data frame corresponding to the three species of penguins that are contained in this data frame. And the distribution of bill lengths for these three species are different. And that's why we're kind of seeing when we looked at them all combined together, we kind of see these like three different peaks. There's a peak over here, there's a peak over here, and there's a peak over here. And when they were jumbled all together, that wasn't really clear necessarily. But when we look at them plotted separately, when we looked at bill length plotted separately for these three different species, that was a little more evident. And so one way to do that was to look at the density plots. Another way to do that is to look at box plots for each of the species and compare them side by side. So that's a really common way of comparing one categorical variable and one numeric variable. So if I want to see, is there any difference between the distribution of bill lengths for these three different species, I can take a look at the three box plots for bill lengths for each of the three species lined up right next to each other. So we can create such a plot of side-by-side box plots in ggplot using the boxplot geom. So I just need to create an additional aesthetic on the y-axis. So when we created the basic box plot, single box plot for the bill length, the code looked like this. And so there's a link to this notebook in the description of this video. I apologize for those that have been like diligently watching all of these videos that I repeat this in every video, but there are people that kind of just pop in and watch one video. So for those of you, there's a link to this notebook in this video. You can click on that link and then you can go to runtime, run before. That's going to run all of the code cells prior to this one. And that will load all of the packages that you need. You'll get caught up with where you need to be. And so if you know how to create a box plot, but you're like, I just need to create side-by-side box plots, it's super easy, right? If you know how to create a box plot over here, and now I want to compare how does the bill length change for different species, I just need to map species to the y-axis. So you would just do something like that. So you just add a y-axis aesthetic by mapping species to the y-axis. So I don't want to change this code, but I'm just showing how you would update that previous box plot. So I've got my ggplot object, which is created from the penguins data. I map bill length to the X aesthetic. I map species to the y-axis, and then I use the geom box plot. And that creates my side-by-side box plots for each species. And then again, you can change the colors and do all kinds of stuff. If you want to set different fill colors for each of the different species, you can do that over here. That's going to create a legend by default because it's going to use scaling because we set the fill inside of the aesthetic. And so if you don't necessarily want that, then you can just turn that off. You can turn the legend off if you want to turn that off. One interesting thing here is I also changed the X and the Y ordering. I made a different change here, right? Over here, I have X as bill length and Y as species. So it lined them up like this. If instead I have X as species and Y as bill length, then it just lined up the box plots vertically like this. So depending on how you want your box plots aligned, you can set X and Y accordingly. I don't think there's any like statistical reason why aligning them this way is any better than aligning them that way. That's just like a personal choice. But that's how you can set up side by side box plots. You would set one of your variables to the x-axis. It's going to be either numeric or categorical. You set the other one to the other axis. So one of them is numeric, one of them is categorical, stored as a factor. And then you use the geom box plot. Okay, well, that's a wrap on box plots. And so there is one last video to go along with this Colab notebook, which is going to be how we can construct violin plots. And so the idea behind the violin plot is we just lose some detail with a box plot. We don't know how the data is distributed between any pair of numbers in a 5-number summary. So we get a little bit more detail in a violin plot. So we'll discuss that in the next video.